Zambia Blog Talk Radio.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And you stay on the recorded shows.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to one of the most anticipated shows this year. Corruption, corruption, corruption. That's our topic for today. We do thank you for joining us. Like we always say when we come on, please remind a friend, tag a friend, share the link on your social media platforms. It's Zambia Blog Talk Radio time, 30th April 2022. It's the last day of April. Today we have like they say in the movie industry, a blockbuster. Corruption is a big issue anywhere in the world. So we are going to get started here. First of all, let me welcome my colleagues. Hi, Mr. K.
Hi, Uncle Nathan.
How is Lusaka today?
Lusaka is good. The weather is chilled.
Excellent, excellent. All right, let's welcome somebody who's been missing in action for a while here. Hello, Uncle Roger, as Kasulova would say. Okay, he can't hear me. We shall get to him later whenever he's ready. So everybody, follow us on Facebook, Zambia Blog Talk Radio, and like or subscribe to our page. On YouTube, it's ZBTR TV. All right, we are going to get started here because we have a lot to talk about. And our guest today is no stranger to this platform, except that ever since we went virtual, she's never featured on this show before, but she has when we're doing the phone call thing. Well, we are glad and delighted to welcome and introduce to you one of Zambia's #1 patriots, according to me. Ms. Laura Miti, she's a Human Rights Commissioner appointed recently by Zambia's 7th Republican President. Laura, welcome. It's been a while.
Thank you very much, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Like I was telling you behind the scenes that I do enjoy the posts that you do about your your young girls. How are they doing? And that will take me into my first question. How did they respond to your appointment as Human Rights Commissioner? How did you explain it to them?
I haven't.
What?
You'll be surprised, but my public life and private life are very separate.
Okay.
So I'm home. I'm just Mbuya.
Yeah, just
what happens
Mbuya.
What happens out there doesn't really come home.
Wow, that is very impressive. I must tell you that I'm glad to hear that because I think it's important. Most people may not know this. I like to use this expression as a Christian leader. You may not hold the title of apostle, bishop, or whatever, but you are a Christian leader. Most people may not know, accept that. I think it's important to do the balancing and separation very importantly to what is going on out there. So a lot of people are concerned, have expressed their concern to say you're being appointed as Human Rights Commissioner will affect your work as a human rights activist and somebody who combats or fights corruption, as our topic is for today. What has been your reaction to that?
Well, it's exactly the same thing. So it's just a continuation of the same work that I do. Absolutely no difference. So there's no reason why I would change the way I interact with public matters, because I would expect that the reason I was nominated to
Mm-hmm.
be commissioner is because of my human rights work. So
Your human rights
not
work.
a,
Okay. But don't you think it will put you in that place where you'll be like, if you need to say something that the government is not doing right, you feel held back because you are given that position? Probably that's a concern of most people.
no, I don't, and I hope the government knows that.
Kasulova, we hope that there's a mutual understanding here, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
hope there's a mutual understanding.
Okay, Laura, you know that politicians will always be politicians. Like I always say, politicians will always be politicians. What does the work of human rights commissioner entail? Do you report to the office every day? What does it involve? Are you on a salary? Those are the things that people want to know.
It's not one is not a job. It,
Okay.
it's like being on a board. Secondly, I'm
Mm.
not sure I should even be talking about it because we haven't been ratified by Parliament, and
Oh,
we haven't been sworn in. So right now, it's just a nomination. We still
okay.
have to go to Parliament, and then Parliament ratifies. When Parliament ratifies, then you get sworn in by the president, and after
Mm-hmm.
that, it's more like a board. So it's
Mm.
not a job. My job is going to continue to be executive director of the Alliance for Community Action.
Okay.
That's my job. Mhm.
Mm. So when is this supposed to happen? The ratification by Parliament and all that process. Do you have
My
an idea
guess,
when?
no, we're not told, but my guess is in the next sitting, because I think right now Parliament is not sitting. So I
Okay.
would say in the next sitting, yeah.
Mm. Okay, that is interesting to know that. We just thought that we should clear all these things out of the way before we jump into the corruption discussion, because people have got a lot of things lingering on their work. On corruption, Kasulova, you can always jump in if you want to say something or you want to ask Miss Laura something.
Yeah.
On corruption, Laura, there is a school of thought. There's too much drama going on right now. You can agree with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
That it has even overshadowed probably some of the good, so to speak, that the government is trying to do. So my question to you, or a lot of people sent me this message, and they are saying this school of thought to say, unless these public office positions entrusted with the responsibility to combat corruption on behalf of the government, they are subjected to an electoral process. We shall continue to experience the vindictive type of process of combating corruption. Okay. This argument is based, of course, on the assumption that public officials are loyal to the appointing authorities. I would like you to address that.
I think elected officials are even more as it were loyal to their party. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of election that would be. I mean, is it outside the party system or what? But I don't think so. I think that what we need to do is learn to separate technocrats from politicians. Um,
Mm.
so the problem we have had is that we each each government comes in and
Mhm.
tends to attend to retrospective corruption. So they look backwards, not enough at what is happening to in their particular government, which is what we need.
Okay.
So we need governments to pay attention to punishing or investigating what happened before they came into office, but also importantly to preventing any ongoing corruption. So for that to happen, you need, yes, that those that are carrying out corruption are given the independence. So you need independent institutions. Independent institutions are not about election. They are maybe about open hiring.
Mhm.
So open hiring, so that the director general of anti-corruption is not appointed by the president, but applies for the job, and goes through an open, competitive process. I think
Mm.
that is what would be useful.
Okay. It's on that same vein, Laura, to say, how does that process happen in our system, which in itself is so corrupt? Because you know how the hiring system, or how we give jobs in Zambia, it's the meritorious aspect doesn't exist. Sorry to say that. That's a far-fetched assumption, because that's why I would think subjecting these people to an electoral process where they just stand for elections like everybody else, not on party lines. They just say,
I mean,
I'm standing.
it just doesn't work. These are not electoral. They're
Mm-hmm,
not electoral positions. But you can have open hiring. Like in South Africa, to hire the chief justice, the
mm-hmm.
interviews are televised.
Oh, wow.
So you can ensure that the hiring process is open. You can set the qualifications if you want,
Mm-hmm,
like we all do for all jobs, but you can make the hiring process. So, as a rule, we need to reduce the number of people appointed by the president. We really do. I mean, you can't have a country in which ultimately everybody is appointed by the president. Because if the director of ZESCO is appointed by the president, under there, the president can ensure that everybody he wants can go in, even in junior positions. So we need as much as possible for top positions to
mm-hmm.
become competitive. The hiring of CEOs should have nothing to do with the president.
Okay. That's a very you
I,
can
I
tell
have a
I'm not convinced. Go ahead, Kasulu.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on the same. I like how you've put it to say, for example, the director of ZESCO and all these maybe parastatals should not be appointed by the president. But who do you feel should push such an agenda?
We are in a catch-22 because it would have to be the sitting government. We need to change. So, for example, if you need a government that thinks about more than just the power it wields. Okay,
Mm,
so unfortunately, you'd expect that you unfortunately would have to have the president himself willing, and the system in office. But otherwise, even now, you could say the heads of parastatals
mm-hmm.
will be the job will be advertised. I don't know why we can't advertise ZESCO. Since Kaunda, the president has been appointing the head of ZESCO. He shouldn't. You see, so the president appoints every minister, every PS, heads of parastatals,
Mm.
commissions, boards, for goodness sake. Okay, of course, boards are appointed via ministers, but you know that the president has a say.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's the
So
argument to say the process is not what it doesn't give the independence to those appointed officials to act the way they're supposed to be acting. You have a follow-up question, Kasulu? Mm.
Um, no, no. For now, I think we're okay. We're good.
Let's go into what is going on now, which we have witnessed in the past few weeks and months. And how coordinated, in your view, are the offices of the Anti-Corruption Commission and Drug Enforcement Commission in light of what we have witnessed in the last few weeks? Do you think they are coordinated?
there might be ACC and DEC could be quite coordinated going forward. Like again, what we've seen, look, historically, is that these two organs were in the hands of the politicians.
Yes.
We are not yet. It's not yet clear right now whether what's happening, whether they are independent yet. We are not very sure. But I think in terms of coordinating, they will. I would expect that the people heading them now will be able to coordinate more. Because in the absence of the two coordinating, you will not have a very effective um, anti-corruption fight, because the crimes that the DEC, the money laundering and all, is very much linked to corruption.
Yes.
So the two of them must speak to each other. So I think the question is overall, how coordinated is this corruption fight? Unfortunately, because we are receiving piecemeal information, any answer I will give is just an opinion. And where we need to go as a country is to get in-depth communication, from those who are investigating. This is what we're doing, this is why. But again, we don't know whether the reason why we don't get the kind of information we crave is because they are worried about scaring off or warning those people that are being investigated. We've seen in the last few days seizures of property and all that. You'd expect that for that to happen, there's been quite an amount of investigation in the background. It's very unlikely that you just wake up tomorrow and say you're going to grab Chitotela's property. So I think there's a lot that's happening in the background that we cannot necessarily be told in full, but I think we could hear more. The way it was during COVID, where every week or every month you get a press briefing or something. I think it would be good.
I agree with you, because it's important that the public is made aware, and it will also, I believe that it will also serve as a deterrent, I'll say it in quotes and quotes, because our corruption fight is after the fact, that these people are no longer in power, so they do not have the powers or authority, so we can get onto them. Like you have rightly put it yourself, to say we should have independent officials who are supposed to be fighting corruption within. Even if somebody is in government, they should be investigated. Because if it's not done that way, it takes me to my next question, to say, do people even understand or are aware that whatever they are doing in their banking transactions, it's subject to what? To be checked, to be investigated, Lord?
Most likely not, but a lot of people don't know much. So, like I'm saying, if the FIC, because that comes more under the FIC. So
Yes.
the FIC needs to carry out a PR exercise, an information exercise actually, that says to people, this is how this works, this is how it works. Right now, our levels of ignorance or lack of information, whichever you want to call it, are high. And it's not only from among the less informed, I think the country as a whole.
Just there, you had made mention to say, just maybe taking you back a bit, the DEC as well as Anti-Corruption Commission could be more coordinated going forward, but not so sure as regards the degree of independence. So then, by independence, do you mean free from government interference, or
Yes, free from political interference.
political interference? Okay.
How possible is that?
Should be. Should be. I mean, we can't throw up our hands in the air and say it's not possible. Then we shouldn't even be having this conversation. So the ideal is that when someone when the people come on if you hear a knock on your door and the police come, you should know you're dealing with the police, not dealing with the president.
And that is, you see, I like that statement you have made. That is the notion that we have as Zambian people, to say, all this that is going on, Lusambo, Chito, and all these guys, instructions are coming from State House. Why do you think we find it easier to believe falsehood rather than facts, especially as it relates to what is going on? We have very clear evidence before us, Laura, the Milingo situation. We are finding it easier to believe the falsehood rather than the facts. The president had to come out and say there was no immunity granted. Where has this come from? Why do we find it easier to believe falsehood?
Because we're a country that does not give factual information to citizens, so citizens are always having to guess. It's very. I mean, we for years, corruption investigations have had to do with the presidency. The politicians are the ones who led them. So I think Zambians are very much within. I mean, you can't if you are an abusive you've got an abusive spouse, then it comes claiming that no, this is different. Today I just want us to talk. You know, you will not believe it, will you? So it's experience.
It's experience, right?
So meaning it's precedence. It's what has been there. It's what we
Yes.
have been subjected to.
Yeah. You know, like we find it very difficult to believe that even you look at President Hichilema, who doesn't want, for example, even something as simple as he doesn't want to be called Your Excellency. We find it very hard because where we are coming from, our presidents are gods. You see, so declarations are not very convincing because a people or a human being lives according to the experience they've had for years. So that's where we find ourselves. So in terms of corruption, it's not what the UPND government declares; it's what they prove to us.
Okay.
We are a very suspicious country. We are essentially an abused country. We don't have faith in politicians because no one has earned our trust. So we are in a situation in which for Zambians to become trusting of what they hear from politicians, the politicians have got a lot of work to do.
Before Roger jumps in here, the point you've made about this seemingly appearing, the focus being on former political leaders, how much are people in the private sector getting away with things? I don't know what your comment on that would be.
I'm sure it will get to them. I mean, we heard, for example, that a lot of lawyers were involved in the corruption. But the politicians, I think, are first because it was in our face. You know, today I saw a picture of Mr. Chitotela as a policeman. I didn't even know he was a policeman at one time. You know, or something dressed. I mean, you know, and then you can't believe, you know, like unless you've met Jesus and he's increased your thing like the wine. You know, like there's no way you get that kind of wealth unless you've won the lotto. There has to be an event, but just straightforward business and whatever. You can't go from what Lusambo was to what Lusambo is, what Chitotela was to what Chitotela is. So we've seen it. You see, and I think that's what makes us that's what makes politicians the first ones, because they were the gatekeepers. And I'm sure, you see, if you're to follow the thread, there are many ordinary people, just maybe someone who used to sell rice who also benefited. So I suppose the corruption fight has to start from somewhere.
Yeah, that's very true. Roger.
Hello, Mr. Like I said, I was happy today. Inflation has dropped to 11.5. We were talking about 22%, was it 9 months ago? So I was very happy about that. So for me, Mr. I've always made an argument that corruption has always been and will always be like you pointed out, the president appoints everybody in Lusaka. So everything happens in Lusaka. So whoever has the highest bidder to get the passport gets the passport. So the design of our system encourages corruption.
Mm.
If one day, as you go to Human Rights Commission, you say, there is no need for someone in Solwezi to come to Lusaka to get a passport. Now you are fighting corruption. There is no need for someone in Zambezi to close the land deal from Zambezi to go and get the title from Lusaka. Now you are fighting corruption. Number one question, do you agree with me?
Yes and no. I mean, what we'll have done is just decentralize corruption. So it won't only be the Lusaka people getting fat; it will be other people in other provinces getting fat. But it's not necessarily that we'll have dealt with corruption. So there is as much corruption in the smaller towns as there is in Lusaka. It's just at scale. So according to the Solwezi economy, there's corruption. According to the Mwense corruption economy, there's corruption, even if their economy is just 5,000. So what we need to do is just make corruption the punishable. You know, it should. I think early on the president was talking about making the benefits of integrity better than the benefits of corruption. So people must think twice before they have to be corrupt. And then also, I think that we just have to grow our economy. The reason why Zambia is so corrupt is the government is too central in terms of the economy. So all it's the sustenance. It's the dog that all the ticks are on this one dog. You need more dogs for the ticks to spread.
Yes.
You see. So right now, if the very government is a monopoly, if you are PS education, the amount of money you are sitting with, which should be in other educational functions, someone else should be doing this. Someone else, the private sector should be very much within education. And I'm not talking about schools, but I'm talking about delivery of services and all. But if all the services, everything, jobs, you name it, what you want is a share of government. When I start selling rice, I want a contract from government. I don't want to sell rice to other people. But for me to arrive at Nimfika Ponomba, Ninkwata contract is government. Everything is government. So our economy is too central, it's too small, too about government. And I don't think there's any country that who get enriched by government contracts. It becomes corrupt. The same way South Africa has become very corrupt. So when the economy grows and people don't need to, like you're saying, pay for every small thing, pay for your economy, and as well as your services improve. Like when I go to the hospital, I'll find a doctor. That reduces corruption. But if there's a one doctor at UTH, that doctor begins to charge people in order for their appointments to be improved. So there's a lot that is behind our corruption.
Do you see, therefore, and thank you, by the way, for agreeing with me, even though you started with disagreeing with me, but now you have agreed with me, which is, I like that. How do you see CDF, therefore, Mr. Roy, in this taking away a lot of this money to the small town? And that doctor who is supposed to come to Lusaka, now he can say, okay, now I can sit in Masabombwe, at least there is money coming. Do you see any link as we take money away from Lusaka to small towns as to combat corruption?
Yes and no again. So first of all, the corrupt of Lusaka, I think, have already moved. I can assure you. They've set up companies in Solwezi, Bwasawombwe, you name it. All right. So they've already done it. But I think in a way it does, especially there's a lot more that needs to happen, which is empowering the people of Masabombwe to understand that this money is theirs and for them
Yes.
to guard it jealously. But the fact of transferring the money from Lusaka to the provinces is brilliant. We had to start somewhere because people say, no, there are no systems and all this. But at some point, we had to start. It's the same thing like free education. When do you start? When do you decide? You see? So we needed to start and then begin to deal with the gaps and all the problems that are coming up. But this Lusaka centric thing where everything was in Lusaka was just not, it's just not was, in fact, it's just not right.
Thank you. I have too many questions, but who knows?
Maybe I can jump in. On the same point that you have raised of the problem being not growing the economy. So you'll find maybe a particular individual in charge is the one who's holding on to maybe the resources here and there. So there's a risk of corruption and things like that, right? So then my question is, why do we always have to wait for, let's say, government officials only to be persecuted or tried after, meaning when they leave office? We're looking at instances of Lusambo, we're looking at Mr. Chitotela and all that. So why can't there be a system where, or why can there be a case whereby sitting leaders, if found wanting, they are prosecuted right in office?
It's not about a system, it's about will. I mean, there's no rule that says you must wait. It's simply because the whole system is corrupt. So if you see where we're coming from, who was going to prosecute who? President Lungu prosecute who? You see, I mean, it was a feeding frenzy. Everybody was in it. You prosecute Lusambo, it's like a house of cards. Everybody then gets affected. So what we need to call on now going forward is prosecution and addressing of ongoing corruption should be given as much energy as the past. Because even Manawasa did that. Manawasa looked to the back, retrospective, but didn't care about the current. When PF came to power, they were telling us that MMD was corrupt while they were busy getting rich. So what we hope now is we will not see these ones getting astronomically rich. You see, I think what the good thing is the Zambia of 2021 and the Zambia of 2011 are very different. The 2022 Zambia and 2015 Zambia are very different. You've seen how sensitive and quick to respond citizens are now. Now, I doubt that the UPND actors will be given as much space to mess the country up as PF were. Because, like I've always said, citizens are to blame for much of what happens in the country. With PF, we were sitting and watching it. Essentially, we all saw Bowman get first his skin is smooth, then he's got this house, and then the other house, and we know it's not possible in an economy that is as depressed as ours is to get that kind of wealth. So it's not only those in power. We citizens must ensure that we don't allow UPND to go where PF did. If we believe that the UPND are angels, we are lying to ourselves. Politicians are politicians. I always say that. One same mother. There is no nice politician. Give them a chance, they will do exactly like PF did. So if we citizens sit back and say, no, now we've got a clean government, we'll be sitting here again. So it's both ways. And we also hope that the investigative wings will pay attention to ongoing corruption as much as they will past corruption.
That's true. We're talking to Ms. Laura Miti here. Let's take a break and we shall read some questions from our viewing audience.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
You are watching ZBTR TV. Our discussion today is with Ms. Laura Miti, Combating Corruption. And we are looking at how to make our institutions strong and make them viable and not have a type of combat against corruption only when people have come out of power. Laura, one of the things that really bothers me is this business of whenever the police do something, you've already talked about this, but I want us to go back to it. Whenever the police do something, we say it's referred or it's taken back to say this is coming from State House, it's the president and all that kind of thing. Why don't we have confidence in our law enforcement agencies?
I get this experience. Before I start, Mr. Charlie, Mr. Charlie,
Yes.
check your WhatsApp.
Yes.
Check your WhatsApp.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll say again, I think what can I say? Citizens only know what they've lived. Okay, so citizens only know what they've lived. It's not a case of what is promised. Okay, so it's not a case of what is promised. It's a case of, so we know the police are supposed to investigate freely, but where are we coming from? We are coming from a situation in which only certain people would get arrested. As soon as you dropped out, as soon as Mr. Kambwili was no longer in favor, his cases were remembered. As soon as this person is not in favor, their cases are remembered. If a civic actor marches, they are arrested. If a cadre is on the street, he's let to go. That is what Zambians know. You see, so the law enforcement agencies, the police, the politicians, the president, they have to gain the citizens' trust. It's trust between citizens and power holders broke. You see, so right now when we hear that
when did that happen? Can we put a finger on it when that happened?
I think years ago, but I think the PF years were the worst, I would say, because especially when it comes to the judiciary, under MMD, even under UNIP, we had more trust of the judiciary. I think, you felt like if you went to court, the decisions were made by the judge. But by the time we reached 2021, very few people had trust, and I think that's the worst place you can reach as a people. It's not even about the PF. Just imagine not being sure when you're standing in court whether this case is being heard fairly. And I think the reason why the PF lost so much in police camps is not because of what was happening or the economy or those kind of things. It's this same loss of power, where they became like toys in the hands of cadres. I think even they themselves got tired of being treated with such disrespect, where a cadre can order them around. So I would hope that the UPND has learned the lesson that you must allow organs of government, law enforcement agencies, all these other people to be independent. Maybe when the time comes, they'll be able to stand up for you. But in this case, you had a president hated by his own police. That was a very dangerous situation, you see. But President Hichilema shouldn't think that's just Lungu. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to respect these police officers. They have a position. Any of us, even in offices, even if you are a cleaner, if the boss, yeah, this, hey, that, kind of thing.
Mm.
We all want some kind of dignity. So, but to your question, I think it's an issue of trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trust is a very big thing.
Yes, and it has to be earned. You say it's easier to lose it than to earn it again.
Yes, because here is my thing. What to convince me, Laura, that all this ifitule mona, it's not coming from State House? What to convince me that from State House? That's my
It's
mind.
how far these cases go, the evidence that comes out in court.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to see. Like I say, we need better communication from the power holders. I think
And
the best thing now, sorry, Kasul, the best thing now, like I said earlier, is if I hear that Mr. Chitotela's property has been grabbed,
Yes.
even me as an ordinary citizen, I think, but you see what I mean? If you show
Mm.
me a war fence that is 10 kilometers long, that kind of thing. Even as a citizen, I think this person has something to answer for. You see, so far, I don't think anybody has been arrested where we citizens can say this is not fair.
Mm. Okay. Kasuluba, you had the question? Or?
additionally, the other issue is just like what Uncle Nathan brought out as regards trust, and also coming back to the issue of, yes, the citizens are to blame in a way. I agree, but then the issue is we do not know how independent certain organs are. I'll be seeing these whatever, how long war fences, the infrastructure that these guys are building, and all that. But then we've heard reports where someone maybe wanted to report a certain situation, but then things turned around because they went to the authorities not knowing that they're working together. You see, so who am I going to report to who's independent? We still are not certain and sure.
The only thing we have is the police and DEC. You, those are the institutions we have. So we as citizens have to insist that they are strengthened. We need to ask intelligent questions about what's happening, following up cases, and all that. You see, so that is what we need. As it is, you can't say, what I mean. You have one house, you have one house. You have to sleep in it, even if it's leaking. We cannot create another police force. So unfortunately, this is where we find ourselves.
Mm. Okay. Let's read some of the questions that our listening watching. That's from Mr. Gregory Mwanza. He says, how does moral standing impact on corrupt practices? Could we suggest that morally our system is so decayed?
A system depends mostly on its rules. You see, your mechanisms to prevent and address corruption should be able to deal with the morally strong and the morally corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Because walking down the street, sitting here, we don't know who's morally corrupt here. Even here, it's not written on our foreheads, if you see what I mean.
Mm.
But if the five of us create an organization or a cooperative where we put money together, the rules should be such that even the most corrupt of us cannot take it, because we have signatories, we have this system, we have who's able to authorize and all. Our problem is our very systems are weak. So when you're writing, for example, an accounting system, you write it for the devil. You don't write it for an angel. So you should be able to control even the devil. So yes, morality is good, but morality is an added advantage. You cannot depend on morality, because as you know, how do you know who you're electing? How do you know? Someone stands up and tells you this story. it's a bit of Russian roulette.
Mm.
So we should ensure our internal controls is where we have a big problem in this country. We have systems that just allow money to go out. For me, my question is: you hear someone stole $33 million? How? Do you know how many people must be involved? The system must break down fundamentally for 33 million to go out of a system. You see, so it's about our internal controls. It's our auditor general's thing should work. But before we start, the controlling officer, the request, if all these should be working, so that where there is stealing, it should be flagged before the money even leaves. Not
It's
auditor
true.
general. Auditor general is too late.
Yeah, because I mean, it brings us back to where we started from with this discussion. When these guys were building all these massive structures, I know the drug enforcement, anti-corruption, their wings were clipped, because immediately something starts coming up, somebody should question and say, you remember the system at ZRI? I gave this example a few weeks ago on this platform. What happened to that system? I don't know whether it's still there, Laura, where you go to register your vehicle at ZRA, they ask you your source of income or how you bought the car. I went through that, I remember. Does that still exist? Even the ZRA is culprit in this situation.
Yes, so exactly. So I'm saying the system should be able to flag the situation.
Mm-hmm.
The system, corruption fight is first of all about preventing, not punishment. You don't fight corruption via punishing the corrupt. Your biggest your highest level of energy should go to prevention. Because once the money has gone, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
If the money that built someone's house was meant to go to medicine, someone has already died. Someone has already died.
Somebody has already died.
If it was meant to go to education, someone is already illiterate. They are already 10 years old tying Lapoku school. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we should never focus only on addressing corruption. We should prevent it, which is why I'm saying even now, our energy should go to preventing corruption now, any more corruption happening. Because otherwise, we'll be trying to get back money once some more money is pouring out. It's that case of mopping the floor without closing the tap.
Wow. Wow.
Do you think, Ms. Rona, let me ask this question. Do you think Zambia as a country, we have the money, we have enough money? If we stopped corruption, everyone will be okay. Or like you said, our cake is just too small. So other people start to let me have the lion's share of this. Do you think it is big enough to go around? I tell you this again, living in diaspora, one of the things we see, the police where I am in Canada here, you cannot give a police $2 to go and buy bread. But I can give a policeman $2 in Zambia to go and buy bread, and they will accept. Which tells me Canadian policeman and the Zambian policeman, they are all people. But someone is willing to give up their dignity for just to go and buy bread.
I think.
Do you think if, number one, we paid our government workers well, just maybe, but even more, my corruption where it is right now is what is happening at the mines. As long as we don't get our money from those, we'll be crying about little things which are happening in Lusaka. We can't pay our police. You've talked about the kid who can't read, illiterate. Where is our money? Probably took some of it. Probably Lusambo took some of it. But a lot of our money, Ms. Rhoda, as you go to human rights, we should get the money from Usolwezi. That is real corruption where it is happening, in my view. But what do I know?
Nothing.
I know. Seriously.
I'll start by answering your first question about Roger. We certainly have enough money for our poverty not to be as grinding. The poorest Zambians shouldn't be as poor as they are if our money was redirected. You see what I mean? So our poorest Zambian has maybe 1 meal guaranteed maybe it's 1 in 2 days. Guaranteed for sure. Our poorest Zambian should be able to have, even if it's in Shima with rape. Nayo rape ya sholo, but they should be able to have it every single day, twice a day. The poorest Zambian should be able to sit in a class of 50 children. Yes, the world average maybe is 30-20, but if we're to look at 100, 120, if there was no corruption, we could at least have 50 kids. Would have Panadol, antibiotic, anti-malaria, what. We might not have CT scans, we might not have X-ray in every clinic, but malaria treat. You understand? Now ORS. So we at the ACA, we had towards the last elections, we just added up the money that was lost as reported by FIC and as reported by the Auditor General's report between 2015 and 2021. Just totaling here na calculator. It's maybe more than 2 euro bonds. You see what I mean? Just money that went. Now remember that in the Auditor General's report and the FIC report, that is random sampling. It's not all them. They don't go to every single department. It's a minute, maybe 1%, isn't it? That they sample. Now, if even what is sampled, you're showing 25 billion. Shan, when you add it together, you're going towards 30 billion money lost without it being sick, without what can I say? Without it going to the services. That is illegal. At ACA, we have coined another term which we call legal waste. And we insist that legal waste in Zambia is worse than corruption. Wow. Because legal waste is the president carrying 200 people with him on a trip when he needs 5. That doesn't come up in the Auditor General's report because he has the power to. Yeah. Legal waste is someone taking a meeting to the Radisson, leaving their boardroom, which the government has furnished, and spending a couple of millions every year. Is buying water at 7 kwacha when you could buy it for 3 kwacha. Now, if you are a government and you buy 10 million or 20 million bottles of water every day, even if you are spending every year, even if you are spending only 1 kwacha extra, you're losing 20 million. So legal waste plus corruption, yes, Barocha, our country would be much better. Kusolwezi kumienuko. You know, when stepchildren, when I can always na kuma shine, you know, when Zambia's new febo kulusaka. You stepchildren, it's always lundazi shine. Even you would feel a little bit like you're Zambians. Green registration card, time where, you know, you're also Zambians. So for me, what breaks my heart is just that actually, that you are taking money from people. You are killing education. You are killing babies. You are killing maybe the most intelligent Zambian who was born in the last 5 years is buried now because Kari Fakuri diarrhea. You see what I mean? We don't think of how wasteful we are. You know, like We seem to think the most intelligent children are born in Kablonga. No, maybe the most intelligent child was born in Mufumbwe or Chadiza.
Mufulira.
Yes, and that child is now illiterate because they didn't go to school or they were in a class of 120. So who has lost? It's Zambia, because that was your next doctor. That one had the answer to HIV, the answer to COVID, this, that. So as a country, we are very wasteful with our resources, our human capital, because we keep our human capital so poor. You know, those people were saying that Minister Kombo was giving Kachaso. Maybe that boy is a genius. But if you go back and track his history, how did he end up drinking Kachaso instead of being in a job? You understand?
Yes.
But we just look at the effects at the top. So yes, Mr. Charlie, if we manage our resources better, our poorest would be better off. And that's where our problem is as a country. The waste of human beings at the bottom there, who wake up every day wondering what they will eat, and therefore they cannot be full human beings and contribute to the growth of the country.
Let's end this discussion by this question, Ms. Laura. What is the way forward? What is my role? I'm not going to say our role as citizens. You educate me, Nathan. What is my role in the fight against corruption? How can we strengthen institutions entrusted with the responsibility of fighting corruption? How are we going to rebuild trust? How do I know what the police is doing is not from an instruction from a church?
I think, first of all, you need to understand how things work. So the country is in two parts. There is those of us that are informed. You know, grade 12, grade 9, you can read. We need to know how these institutions are meant to work. We need to stop treating politicians like they are our gods. We need to hold them to account every single day, starting from the smallest resource, WDC fund, CDF fund. When you go to a clinic and there's no medicine, you need to ask yourself why. Why is there no medicine? So it's a case of each of us worrying very much about how the resources are used and never stopping to ask questions. Let's not wait until someone has built 10 mansions before we ask questions. You see your neighbor, this person was a cadre with you. Now he's driving 4 expensive vehicles. How? You see? So I think we need to really understand as citizens that every ngwe stolen is your money, and that's not academic. It's your money. The reason, if you're a young person, the reason you're not at UNZA is not because you're down. Because in other countries, as long as you've got your 5 credits, you should be at a university, isn't it? Even if it's a loan.
Yeah.
You don't need. How can you run a country in which you need 6 points to go to university? What kind of madness is that? You're going to educate the geniuses. Because 6 points is 1.2%. All our children who get 3 10 points, 20 points should be at university. They are not there, or they should be at a nursing school or at a trade school. The reason they are not there is because someone stole money. The reason your baby sister died from a treatable disease is because someone stole money. The reason your father died from depression is because someone stole money. That's how we should look at it. And also, we should have a heart for those weaker than us. But middle class in Zambia are the worst people, because your child goes to a private school. You're not worried about those 200 who sit in a class, because they will. But which country will your child work in if those 200 are also left behind? Because they become the cadres, you see. So we need to worry about those weaker than us and those poorer than us and hold government to account. That's what I would say.
Wow. That's a good way
and
to
the
end
mines.
this.
Don't forget about the mines. And the mines.
Mr. Charlie has answered, has added something.
He has added something. Yeah. That's good. Laura, thank you so much for taking the time. And I know you had to sacrifice to be here. Like I said, you are the #1 true patriot that I know. I'm not saying this because you are here or exaggerating, but You fought a good fight, my dear sister. Keep it up. And I am confident that this appointment won't affect your, you won't be afraid to say what you need to say. Thank you much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we shall take a
You're
break.
welcome.
Yeah, we shall take a break and come back and continue the discussion of some of the things that Miss Laura has highlighted.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Okay, that was our discussion with Miss Laura about combating corruption. I've sent a link to 1 or 2 people. Uncle Gregor, if you're able to join us, please come in. Let's try to dissect this and sort of just share some thoughts about Kasuluba. What are your thoughts?
A lot has been brought out. I like, first of all, the fact that she mentioned plainly to say politicians will be politicians. And that's one thing that we need to be able to understand. Meaning that we need, as citizens, we need to be expectant and have our eyes open, because at times we might think to say, no, the bad ones were those that are gone and things like that. But we need to know to say, these are the people that are in charge of our resources and all that. So we need to take them to hold them accountable and ensure that as citizens, our agenda is first priority.
Wow.
Which is one of the things that
I like that statement. As citizens, our agenda is priority.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry for disturbing, for interrupting. I just didn't want to lose the thought.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So which is one thing that she has really brought out. The other issue, I think, is how we need to realize as citizens to say we are the ones that are at the end of the day, we are the bosses. So some of the things that we feel to say need to be changed, we need to see how we should push the agenda. For example, heads of these parastatals,
Yes.
the head of the judiciary. These are topics that we've been having from since time immemorial to say no, but how come shouldn't they be independent? So if we feel to say at all, maybe they should be elected separately as opposed to being appointed, as in a way it may affect their objectivity. As citizens, we need to, it's high time we rose up really and push some of these things, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Francis, thanks for joining us. I know you've been following this behind the scenes. Welcome. Roger, go ahead before Francis coming in. I just wanted to acknowledge you.
You know, when we talk about corruption, I like what Laura was saying. She was always connecting it to something. And all of us, when we talk about corruption, actually we are not really talking about corruption. We are talking about why our roads are bad. That's what we are talking about. We are talking about why we don't have medicine in the hospitals. We are talking about why our kids don't have computers. That's what we are talking about. When we look at countries like Saudi Arabia, these oil countries, in my view, they are one of the most corrupt.
Yeah.
But because they retain, in Saudi Arabia's view, 90% of their revenue, which comes from oil, is retained in Saudi Arabia. At least a good number of their population,
yeah,
they have medicine, they have this, they have this. In Zambia, from the mining sector, we only retain about how much? 15 at most, 15%. The rest of the money goes away. So we'll talk about, oh, this one has stolen this. No, I still insist. Our real corruption, where it is happening, it is in the mines. As long as the mines get what they are getting, we will never have better schools in Zambia. We will never have medicine in the hospital. Never. No matter how many samples we are going to have or how disciplined we are going to have.
Yeah, it's true.
It is time we fought the corruption happening at the mines. Let's retain even 50%. Now 50 akula, 30% of that money being made in the mines. Let's retain it.
Yeah.
Over to you, Francis.
Well, Francis, what's your take?
Good morning, good afternoon, Kaslova. It was a very exciting program. I loved it. I loved it to the core. So many things stood out for me. And I think three things that I think they have contributed to why we are so corrupt in Zambia.
Yes.
I think the first thing is we are the problem, not the politician. The politician has never been the problem. We, the people, we are the problem. We are less demanding. We don't know our rights. We don't take things serious. It starts at the ballot box. Let's elect leaders that are upright, and we demand. We keep on checking and seeing if they're doing their job. It's so funny that I think it was grazed upon. The president or the government has too much powers.
Yeah.
We trust them to appoint all these leaders of security wings, agencies like anti-corruption and drug enforcement, and then turn around, sit down, and expect the very people who are appointed by them to prosecute them when they are. It's foolishness on our part. That's what it is. There should be a system where the government does not appoint such kind of leaders. People should apply, vetted properly, and that's how it should be. The max the president can do is nominate, but a person goes through parliament because we have three government. Legislature, actually.
You have people in your background?
No, not with me.
Okay.
The legislation should take charge. So first and foremost, let's stop at expecting these leaders who are appointed by politicians to prosecute them. And this is why we have things like right after politicians have fallen out, that's when they're being persecuted. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah.
You
see, Francis, I like that point. And that is exactly what I was trying to say when I used the argument by Gregory Welcome to say, is there a way we can try to get away and move away from this thing? There's no way you're going to appoint me and I turn around and start prosecuting you, Uncle Gregory. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. She gave a very good point to say these people who are entrusted with the responsibility of managing or running these institutions, which combat or supposed to ensure that the system is a level playing, others are not manipulating it, just apply for these jobs. I use the argument of them being elected. You heard me, Uncle Gregory. I don't know. First of all, welcome and make your comments, whatever stood out to you, and then address my point or comment.
Thank you so much. Good to see you, Wakombe. Probably maybe I might say happy New Year. Kale to pre-elections.
I know, right? Oh, yeah. Wow, that far back?
Yeah. We need to bring back the discussions, there's a lot happening.
Yeah. I think she was really on point on a number of issues that were raised, and it's such an I think this government is privileged to have such people rooting for it, and I think it's important to take advantage of such principled characters who will be able to even sort of help to direct the course of the recovery of the country. So for me, I think I can't add or subtract so much of what she said, if possible, probably. If there was any government official listening to what she was saying, I think it's important that that is taken into consideration. Or probably on the slight aspect of appointed officials in government, I think this has to do with the law, and this is where I think it's the job of the lawmakers. Because why I'm saying this is, if you remember, I think was it the last press conference where President HH was asked about his chairmanship with IDC. He categorically put it, he says, it's got nothing to do with me. I've not maintained to be IDC chairman because I want to, but it is the law that I have found. So that in itself should indicate to the lawmakers that when they go into parliament, those are issues. I think Wakombe Wachisachi posted that the president has too much power. It's not the president who's wielding or to hold on to that power. It's the system that has given him that power. So anybody who goes on to that chair, I mean, they are not going to abrogate any of those laws except things go through parliament. Because it's like the issue that he has with by-elections. Personally, HH has said, I don't want by-elections. But he can't pass a decree to cancel by-elections because we are a country of laws. So some of these things, as we are talking about people being, those positions being advertised, and we need to have the lawmakers in parliament to address these issues so that they pass, laws or suggestions, statutory instruments that are going to advocate that we change the system of appointing these people and having them to be elected. So for me, I think the job our parliament has, or the new lawmakers, is to be serious and address issues rather than politicking.
Roger, how credible do you think the process of, she gave the argument of saying, even if they are elected, she doesn't agree with the process of them being elected, but that we should advertise the job and people apply for it. Do you think that's workable?
Well, I don't really know, because where we are here, being United States, in Canada, in the UK, these are appointed people. A lot of them are appointed. It is in America, maybe, where a policeman, the police chief is elected, but everyone else is appointed. So we can't run away from that effect of appointments. My only thought is to go to countries where they have fought corruption head on. How have they done it? There are examples all over the world. Number one, Zambia is part of it. Kudos to us, our little democracy. The fact that Laura can even come here and talk about it, if she was in Russia, she would disappear. How can you say the president has got too much power? So kudos to us. Look at how we pushed around, what is his name, Gary Nkombo, for doing what he did. The minister of what is his foreign affairs, he was caught receiving, I don't know if it's a gift somewhere. It became an issue. Let's not minimize that. This is huge, in my view. Now we need to take it a step further. Like she said, we should not allow the way we allowed PF to get away with murder, so to say. Now we have become so sensitive. Every little thing we are on it. because we are so scared from where we have come from.
Mm.
We are in the right path. Should we test now? Let's wait. When someone is appointed, let's see. Let's see how the conclusion to a lot of the questions we have, where they go. But the fundamental question is, we the citizens, are we willing to get involved? Involved in a real way. Not involved fair, involved in a real way. Sometimes even willing to spend money. You know, I'll give you an example. Are we able to organize ourselves, put some money together, and say, we want to see where CDF is going to go? Real studies, people should start to bring. But social media will find ourselves again in the same route. Let's be willing this time and say, I am not sitting. You said Nathan yourself to Laura. Talk to me. Not at somebody else, but talk to me.
Yeah, to me. What's my role?
How much am I willing to go? You who is listening live to us today, are you willing to go and attend a council meeting now we can, because we want to fight corruption? How much are we willing to give up our time? How much are we willing even to put some money to fight corruption? Or we just want to talk and we expect others to go to jail? No, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
So
Richard agrees with you.
Whether near just pure appointments or elected, it wasn't the election. We voted, but they were still corrupt.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. Richard says, I agree with Roger. Zambians are the most cowards I have known. Kasulova.
Before you move to the next point, I wanted to touch on what, with your permission, I wanted to touch on one point that Roger touched on. He mentioned people should be elected. I agree, but not 100%. I believe the president has the right to choose his own team. And place people in positions, big positions, that he thinks they can deliver. For instance, here in the West, the president nominates the CIA director, the president nominates the FBI director, and all the big organizations and wings, but they are confirmed in parliament.
Yes.
That's very important, because if you open it to say, let's say the Anti-Corruption Commission director, everyone should apply, there's going to be a problem. Because if the system fails, we blame the president, the one who's in charge, right? So I believe he should have a say in choosing, nominating, and then let parliament agree or not. And then the second point is, for as long as there are no prosecution in all these investigations, will never go anywhere. For as long as all these big guys are caught and released, and you say we are fighting corruption, will never go anywhere. The day we are going to hear announcements by judges and magistrates and courts sentencing some of these big politicians to actually serve jail term, you see how things will change. Because there's nothing that scares them out there. That's the reason you find them even. I'll give you an example right now. Honorable Win, right? The day they mentioned that they were investigating, it was all over social media. Come and arrest me if you have anything, this and that. Then a few days later, he was charged. Have you seen him on social media? He's now realizing that this thing is real. Someone might say he cannot comment because the case is in court, but he has gone quiet. These big guys, some of them who looted money, they're jumping and stamping on their chest and beating their chest because there's nobody who has been charged. Somebody has to save. Let a few people who are guilty, underline that, save jail term. You need that. You need examples in society. In the Middle East, you steal something, they cut off your hand. People see that it's real. Do you think people do such crimes? They don't. So we need examples, Mr. President. Your fight is real, but we need prosecutors. We don't need people who steal $400 million and then you say they agreed and they gave us information, therefore we are dropping the cases. What about Mwamba Katongo, who stole a wheelbarrow, who's rotting in jail in Mansa, serving 5 years for stealing a wheelbarrow? And yet you have a guy who stole $40 million, and because he gives you information, you leave them scot-free. So is the law just for poor people? Because the rich are not, they are not serving.
Yeah, that's an important. Let's hear Mr. Kasulova here. You'll probably just wind up our discussion as we end our show, but I'm not limiting what you need to say. Just take your time. And first of all, what stood out to you from our conversation with Miss Laura? And do you think, to Roger's point, you are on the ground, Kasulova? The citizens, we have stepped up. Have the citizens stepped up to this? UPND have created an atmosphere where there is no intimidation from the cadres. The citizens have stepped up. First of all, what stood out to you from our conversation with Miss Laura?
For me, Nathan, what stood out the most was the fact that in as much as she's a commissioner who was appointed by the president, she was still able to come out and state to say, do not think that the UPND are angels. Okay?
Wow.
So
yeah.
Already we're able to see that she has a sense of independence. Yes, this position I have been appointed, but let me do what I need to do as a commissioner. The rights need to be safeguarded and all that. So that I really liked. As to whether the citizens have stepped up, I really think yes, we citizens have stepped up for those of us that are on the ground, because starting from was it 2012 August when the elections were held?
Yes.
All of us that voted were praising us, if I can use that term. But one fascinating thing is that where things seemingly going wrong, citizens are rising up. If there's something that's not clear, people are calling out to say, let the president clarify this. The Milingo case, Uncle Nathan.
Yes.
People said, no, if this is the case, it is wrong. It shouldn't be like that. The other point, which whether it was right or not, I am not sure. But look at what happened when Honorable Nkombo did what he did.
Yeah.
Did you see the uproar that was there? Just how citizens said, no, you are not the law, you're not this, you're not that. It prompted him to publicly do what? Apologize. Not only apologize, he called the family of the lady, I think the husband and other, to his office, and he apologized. So it shows that citizens, Zambians, I think, are holding these our leaders, are the politicians, accountable. And whatever little thing that seems to be a bit of an issue, we are voicing out. Yeah.
Good. Uncle Gregory, have people been trying to use the Milingo thing to undermine HH to say it's not different from any what? Because you could see the going back and forth. No, he was granted immunity, he wasn't granted immunity. When he went to visit his mother in Southern Province, he sent a message on Twitter to say nobody was granted any immunity. Just like I asked Laura Gregory, why do we find it, Roger, so hard to believe facts and truth? We lean towards falsehood. So, Uncle Gregory, as we conclude, do you think people were trying to use that Milingo thing to undermine HH?
Absolutely, yes, especially those in the opposition. But from my point of view, it's there's something that really seems to be frightening me, because I think social media is being abused, because we see a number of these documents that are flying on social media. Then you start asking yourself, where is the security consciousness or the confidentiality of most of these institutions? Because you don't just get documents being flashed around somewhere. So the office orderly has to be taken to task. Why should social media become a platform of circulating these falsehoods? Because it borders on the fact that, okay, today, sorry to digress, today Nakachinda is being tried here and there because of what he said on social media. Now, what about a document which is purported to have been a communique between two heads of institutions? Because that's supposed to be a confidential document. Maybe they haven't even come to a conclusion, but already it's in the public domain. So I agree with Ms. Laura Miti that we tend to sort of thrive on falsehoods without establishing facts. And you see, even I mean, this is now cynical me, because even when the president says we did not grant anybody any immunity, I mean, I'm now going to even doubt the statement of the president, because there's so much misinformation going out there that it's now one person's word against the other, you see. So there is a lot that we have to do as far as caging our security consciousness. That's why I think whilst the discussion was going on, I posted a question. I said, can we trust our police service?
Yeah, I know.
Because we are not very far away from the previous elections, where almost everybody knows how infiltrated the police service was by cadres. So are we saying 8 months down the line, the police service has been cleansed to the point that information flow is the way it's supposed to be? So this in itself, the Milingo issue, I think has polarized the whole discourse, and I think has even affected the judgment that is going to come out of the courts, because now we don't know what is what. Somebody will cry foul at the end of the day, because social media, I think, has been abused to terrible levels. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. All right, as we conclude, though, all of you remember last week we did a financial campaign for a young men's mentorship day, which was held on Wednesday, I believe 27th. It was hosted by our collaborating partners, My Zambia, My Responsibility. And we have members of the ZBTR family who contributed, friends. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the following people for contributing: Aubrey, Bella, Miss Deborah, Priska, Nelly, Harriet, Nasilele, Brenda, Uncle Derek. Those are the people that contributed to this. They did send me pictures and a video clip to say thank you. However, it came when the show was already ongoing, so we were not able to play it. However, we just want to say, I'll play the video next weekend, the message from My Zambia, My Responsibility, and also to show some pictures of how the event went. Thank you, everybody. We do thank Laura for taking the time to do this. Laura is a true patriot. She and other members of the community have risked their lives and literally brought down a regime, if you want us to say those words. It was good to see you, my good friend in Canada. I hope the snow is over. Vakombe, thank you.
Double digits today, nice and warm.
Oh, yeah, nice. Okay. Uncle Gregory, always coming up in short notice. And Kasuluba, keep the things going there on the ground, okay? No more. Achani, what slogan did Dr. Mumba come up with? Don't you kutina, all right? No more. The president and the new government have created an atmosphere where people can speak their minds. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next weekend for another great show.
Zambia Blog Talk Radio.